The Old School is brought to you by Ahart Solutions, which provides school surveys and applied research. More information at ahartsolutions.com. Good morning and welcome to the Old School Podcast, a podcast about the American education system and sundry. And we'll probably deal with the sundry today. And with me in that endeavor is my good friend, Dr. Stephen Bourgeois. Good morning, sir.
Here, Miller. Top of the morning to you.
And to you, and also to you.
And to all those mothers out there. For Mother's Day tomorrow, right?
I've heard.
Yeah.
I was reminded by a radio commercial the other day, so I've been scurrying feverishly trying to. You want to know the worst mistake I ever made?
Sure.
It certainly has to rank as one of them. And I've made some doozies. Let's not kid ourselves.
Yeah.
But very early on, right after my daughter was born, we came upon our first occasion to fet my wife as a mother. And I said something to the effect within earshot of my wife. You know, someone asked me what I was going to do for Jen for Mother's Day, and I said, "She's not my mother." So,
you're not alone.
What's that?
I would have said the exact same thing.
One of the dumber things I've ever said, and that's like I said, it's saying something. So.
You need to set the bar lower. I mean, right out of the gate. Otherwise, you're stuck every year now.
You're trying to outdo yourself every year?
Well, I mean, it's not like your kid's going to do anything until they're maybe 18 and employed. No, I think I negotiated better. But I set the bar low on all holidays, including birthdays and everything else. But I don't like Mother's Day, just as like I don't like any holiday. It's no exception.
What is your problem with Mother's Day?
It's just sad.
Who can have a problem with Mother's Day?
My orphanhood, is that if that's a word? And so
what's that?
Being an orphan.
Well, that happens to us all at some point, but
well, I know,
surely the sentiment of the day you don't have a problem with, do you?
Well, it's just reminding people about that. No, I don't know who invented it. Some greeting card company, but there really is. I don't know where it came from. Is it just an American thing? Do they celebrate this in other parts of the world?
I think they do.
Really?
I did.
I would be surprised. Sounds like
I don't know if it's a blanket thing, but I think there's a lot of places, especially in Europe. Europe always copying our holidays.
I think it was,
and so I think that they have it, but I can't speak to whether some village in Afghanistan is getting ready to celebrate Mother's Day right now or not. But I mean, I don't know why I chose Afghanistan just then, but
yeah, it's a little odd you'd take it right there. But I believe it was one of the many created by Hallmark. They decided would celebrate that and buy cards. So it's sort of a card one. It's not a gift requirement typically. If you're going to do anything, a card will do, right? That's in its favor.
Well, as you say this, I'm looking towards my wife, and she's neither confirmed nor denied your assertion that a card is not necessary or a gift is not necessary.
Really, really hard because normally I'm really good at reading body language. I can't tell if I'm in trouble yet. I'm pretty good at keeping in her good graces. So.
She will always like you more than me, so it's fine. Well, today, given our proclivities towards that Teutonic wonderland in Europe, known as Germany, it is interesting. I don't think a lot of people know. They may know it intuitively, but I don't think a lot of Americans know the degree to which Germany has influenced this country and continues to do so, partly because of the amount of people in the United States that can claim German heritage. something a lot of people may not know is in World War One, when we were getting ready to break our neutrality, it was not a given that we were going to side with the British. The fear was is that there were so many Germans in this country, so many first generation Germans, that us siding with the British could cause internal unrest. And so I think a lot of times when we talk about World War One, especially World War Two, the assumption would be that we would side with the British. World War Two is much more of a clear cut case. However, in World War One, it was not so, and a lot has to do with the fact that Germans and Germany have had a massive cultural impact on this country. So there was a recent podcast episode of Easy German, it's a German language podcast, and they were talking about the quirks and character traits, some of them. Germany is a pretty quirky crowd, and so they didn't hit all of them, but they hit a few kind of cultural traits, and I wonder to what degree, since both of us could be described politely as germophiles, if that's a word.
German
But
file.
but
Germaphobe.
no, but but since given our love for Germany, the German language, the German culture, I'm wondering to what degree we share some of these quirks, and to what degree the United States in general, what we think, how much Americans believe this as well.
Okay. Well, so I want to do that, but I also can't sometimes I think of something I can't put it to bed. You're a historian. I have a historian right here in front of me. And
That's me.
what if? I mean, this will solidify our topic a little bit, but not like the United States government chooses sides whimsically, kind of like you choose football teams. I'm going to root for Tampa Bay.
Uh,
I never stepped in the state at that time. Um, so, assuming that we said, well, we have so many Germans in our country, first of all, why do we have to side with anybody? But if we need a war, what if we sided with the Germans? How would have history changed? Because certainly that coalition would have been pretty powerful.
it would have been pretty powerful. Remember that in both World War One and World War Two, the German military was able to hold off the bulk of the European forces.
Right.
Only the Russians coming in caused pause, but not because of Russian competency, but simply Russian numbers is what did in the Germans on that side of things. So if we had sided with the Germans in World War One, Germany does not get defeated. Germany does not go through the humiliation of the Versailles Treaty and all the ramifications that included. But because Germany does not go through the result of Versailles, maybe Hitler does not gain the ear of the German people.
Right.
You know, so someone might then cavalierly say, then the Holocaust was our fault. But I think if the idea of putting pieces together, you could see a pathway where that doesn't happen if we side with the Germans in World War One.
Okay. Um,
So now,
there,
typically, I don't go for the what if kind of
oh,
history,
you went
because sometimes,
right.
I mean, there's enough of real history to
Yeah.
be beleaguered about, rather than coming up with our own problems. Um, but it is kind of remarkable to think about how history over the last 100 years would be different had we joined the German side in World War One.
Well, let's make it a little closer decision. What if we had a whole lot of politicians who were more isolationist at that time, and
Right.
what if we would have not entered the war at all?
Well, I mean, yes. I mean, politically, we were isolationists. Economically, we were not.
Okay,
And so,
but it
and
was more
that's
likely.
eventually,
It would have been
say
more
again.
likely. It would have been more likely at that time for us to do nothing than
Right.
go support the Germans.
Yeah, it's Yeah, I mean, the isolation is we have a strong history of it in the United States. If you don't recall, after Washington was in office, he gave a farewell address, and he warned of two things. He warned of political parties, and he warned against allying ourselves with Europe, and basically suggesting that we should stay away from Europe at all cost.
And
The
your thing went off when you said who said that.
Washington.
Okay, I thought so. But I didn't want to make myself sound funny.
No, but George Washington suggested, those two ideas. The political party thing, we disregarded that about 10 seconds after he left town. But the isolationist attitude, for the most part, we maintain until the end of World War II.
Yeah.
So it is not a given that we would have broken with our isolationist ideas in World War One.
Yeah. And then it could have turned out, no Versailles Treaty, none of that.
None
Also,
of that.
um,
Right.
okay, so we cleaned up a whole century just there.
Yeah.
Um,
Done and dusted.
yeah. So your topic is more serious now because we're talking about stereotypes.
It's not stereotypes. I mean, the Germans that were talking about this on the podcast, they readily admitted that this was legitimate things.
Okay, they did.
And so, but the question is, these things are legitimately believed and held and treasured and followed in Germany. And the question is, to what degree are we like that, and to what degree, in particular, and in general, to what degree is the United States like that?
Okay, so we're not trying to affirm that Germans are like that because we are we know them, but we're also outsiders, and we're not gonna. And we have German people listening to this, and they'll say, "What
Sure.
do you know?"
So yeah, so that's why the premise is important. Now I'm listening to a German language podcast. These are Germans talking about these issues, and the premise is that all of these are true characteristics or quirks of Germans. And my thought was, to what degree do we mirror those traits?
Okay, as Americans, not you and I personally.
Well, we can start with us personally, and then we go to the United States. The first one, as a social duty, they called it a social Pflichtung, like the idea that the society as a whole considered as something so important that it's a social duty to be punctual. To what degree would you say that you are punctual?
Personally,
And do you consider it a duty, a responsibility to be punctual?
it kind of depends, but for the most part, yes, getting to places early, but not as punctual as you. You actually do get. I prefer to get there right on time, unless I have the wrong address in my phone or something. Going to breakfast this very morning, that was on me. Um, so I like to drive up right on time, but not 10 minutes early or 15 minutes early, but just right on time. But I do think about it. I'm not cavalier about when I
Right.
leave the house, and I'll get up early enough for so that I'm not creating stress. But yeah, so I think it is important. It's a sign of respect, um, to get there on time. Getting there early is more of a requirement if it's people you don't know and you just don't want to make a bad impression if you get stuck in traffic or something.
Sure. Yeah, for me, it is a very important thing. And 10 minutes early or you're late. My it's from my father's attitude was, if you're not 10 minutes early, you're late. And so I've kind of embraced that, much to my wife's chagrin. I think, when we first started dating, she did not understand the notion of punctuality. She understands about the concept in general. I don't think it's something that she embraces herself, but um, she used to get on me because I would want to be punctual to parties, and she goes, "You're an idiot. No one's punctual to parties." So those kind of things. Those kind of things are things that can be difficult as far as, like, human relations goes.
Oh,
But yeah, I think it's a duty to be punctual.
Um, but getting early to the airport, is that part of being punctual?
Oh yes. To me, I'll be there like an hour early. I just like the notion of not for spending as little time as possible in traffic worrying whether I'm going to get there in time. I'd rather be there early and be comfortable and be calm and not stressed. And so for me, being on time or God forbid being late is just a compounding of stress and I don't like it. And that's one of the reasons why, if at all possible, I try to be early.
So remember when you were showing your house? I mean, we just have done that recently, and some people will say they book a whole hour and they'll come late during that hour. They'll just maybe, or they don't show up at all.
Right.
And so to me, there's in society, at least in the United States, a little bit more cavalier attitude towards time than I would like. Um,
Mm.
it feels that way, but I mean, no one would say the Americans are punctual per se, as an American trait. We have a lot of variety. It just depends on the individual, but certainly nothing like the Germans. But what I always told my students is that the Germans will arrive to a party to the minute, right when this party's scheduled. So
Yeah.
they're not going to come late or early. They come exactly on time.
So you think the fashionably late concept is something not widely held by Germans?
Yeah, I think they come right on time, and then they take about an hour to leave. You know, the leaving is slow, and that stresses me out. When it's time to leave, I like to walk to the car, wave as we leave. You and I are pretty good about that, but the Germans will continue the conversation outside, and then those long departures, I get stressed sometimes. I just have to walk away and go hide. It's like,
In the United States, they call that the Midwest goodbye, and
yeah,
it is
yeah.
my wife excels at it, and I abhor it
Hmm.
because
That's
unlike you, if you say let's go, then I walk straight to the car. I wave to everybody as I walk out of the room. I may shake the hand of the host or something like that, but otherwise I go straight to the car and
yeah.
I'll find myself sitting there for like 30 minutes. I said, why don't we just stay in the house? I mean, why why say we're leaving now and then stay at extra 30, 45 minutes talking on the front lawn? It you die a thousand deaths dealing with that.
But the Germans will do that with it. Often you'll see a big group outside by the cars. You know, Uh, uh, it's just to me it's odd. Yeah, I want to once the decision has been made to leave, it's irrevocable. It means you're leaving right now.
Yes. Well, I think my wife and I have figured out a system, or more my wife has figured out a system of how to deal with me in leaving a party. I
Yeah.
have figured out a system in going to the party. And so like if I'm responsible for like the timing, I will tell her that we need to be there about 10 minutes or 20 minutes before we actually need to be there, just so that we're there at a time that I feel comfortable with.
Okay, so you're actually lying.
Lying, yes. And she started to lie to me as far as, like, leaving the party, so we both agree it's okay, at least in this realm, and we'll take it from there.
Okay. Do you have a little signal like you go to the touch the ear or something? But
I think that would give up the ghost, well, we do our best there with that. Now the second concept is something that I am huge on, and I think my wife is as well. I'd be curious, but I don't think you are, and that is the idea of windows or doors open. So there is a German concept called Stoßluft, and it's like a shock ventilation. So they do it as a point of uh, practicality where they'll open up everything for about 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It doesn't matter how cold it is outside. They'll open up all the windows. They'll let all that air in. And if it's very cold, then they close it after that time. But in general, there is this notion, mainly because Germans don't have, in large part, AC, where they leave the windows open. and they have those kip windows where you
Right.
can kind of lean them in a little bit. So they'll do all kind of variations of that. I'm wondering, here's my thought. As I drive around, I see most people like today. Today's a nice day. It's in the 70s. It's sun shining. There's a nice wind. To me, that's perfect weather to have the windows down. My sense of it is that Americans are not keen on having the windows open because they don't have them open in the car. But maybe that's not a good comparison. What do you think?
Well, it depends on where on the West Coast, they have screens everywhere. I mean, we don't
Right.
have screens on our windows, so there's no way you couldn't open these windows if you tried. There's no physical way to open many of the windows. And then but the idea of opening them like in Germany, where they're actually open and air comes in and there's no screen, you're just opening those big windows, and then we could get bugs in the house or anything. I think during the winter it would make more sense because there are no bugs. It certainly wouldn't open any door or window, with you get mosquitoes and flies and all that in your house. I wouldn't want that.
But they don't seem to mind that.
Yeah.
Or they just assume that's just part of the deal. You just have flies and then you just deal with them in the house. But I just don't think in general Americans are, and maybe I'm completely wrong about this. I'm a huge believer. Well, first I'd prefer to be outside than inside, but I'm not sure if most Americans are the windows open, cross ventilation kind of people. They just assume put on the AC as soon as the temperatures get above 70.
Yeah, without AC, we would all, crawl in a little hole or something. Because it also deals with humidity and all those other things. Uh,
Mhm.
that I did like to sleep with the windows open back in Oregon because it got
Yeah,
cool. You
yeah,
know, here where we are, it gets in the summer, it gets to maybe 85. That's the coldest part of the whole day. And so
right.
that wouldn't be very, very fun. But I see what you mean. And no, we don't have that concept here. I guess we just call it airing out the house. You know,
Yeah.
could open a front door and a back door and leave it open for about 20 seconds and you've done something.
But I do like the idea of opening up all the windows on a cold day just to kind of it's not just the shock ventilation as the Germans say, but it's almost like a refreshing of the house. All the furniture gets a little cool, and so the couch gets a little cool when you sit in it. It feels good. I think there's something to that.
Hey, we can bring it back. We can bring it
All
here.
right.
But not,
All
no,
right.
I like it dark. I like
All right.
straw and
You-
everything.
you- How often do you have your windows open in your house?
I don't know how they work, honestly.
All right. Point three. I have always avowed that German bread is better than any other bread in Europe. And I don't care what the Italians say, I don't care what the French say. German bread is the best. And he talked about bread being a central part of German culinary culture and that it has to be a part of nearly every single meal. I think that Americans do this as well. Unfortunately, American palate for bread is not as sophisticated as the German palate for bread. We have some ridiculous notions of what constitutes bread. But I think in general, we too in the United States hold to this notion of the importance of bread during meals. Do you think that's true?
think it's changing with all the high carb diets. Anything bread based, I mean, it's a source of um, fiber potentially.
Hmm.
It's good enough bread, but for the and then personally, I did um, have the bread at breakfast this morning because it was really good bread. But normally
Right,
I would not eat that, and I would not eat the potatoes, hash browns, any of that. Just go for the meat. So 100%.
right,
So I think the diets have shifted away from bread, but it means that maybe you're going to pay for better bread. What we have, I mean, if something's sitting in a wrapper in a grocery store for 2, 3, 4, or 5 days, it's nothing like what you get in Germany.
right. in Germany, you buy bread for the day,
Mhm.
because it's not going to last much beyond 2 or 3 days.
Yeah.
We're buying bread for like the week or two,
2
2 weeks.
2 weeks, yeah, and then we just open it up, and it's not moldy, it smells okay, it's not hard, it's good, it's fine, and you but yeah, it's not the same, it's a different food group, technically.
I always felt bad for the German students who came over because you could tell that they wanted bread to be a part of their existence here, but the bread that they would be confronted with, it just stymied them. Every once in a while, for those listening, Steve and I used to have a cultural exchange with German students. And at school, they would often meet in one of our rooms in the morning to kind of debrief the day and the day before, what have you. And one of the things that I always remember hearing Germans talk about with their teachers was the state of bread in this country was abysmal.
Yeah.
And so I think Americans do hold to this idea. I just think we don't hold to it with the best variety of bread.
Well, Germans are so adept, and they have, say, the roll, the breakfast roll, the Brötchen, where you
Yeah.
have and you need a knife, like a serrated type knife to cut that, and they just hold it expertly and move it around and
Mm, mm.
cut it up and eat it, and it's a skill, then you get an American there trying to cut it one side or the other, not cutting it across the middle like that, and certainly not
using a
holding it.
using a butter knife.
Yeah, or we put it a you know, on the counter, one of those things, and chop it up into little pieces, or try to put it on our toaster, I don't know, but yeah, I guess we do have bakeries. Yeah, but I don't believe that even our bakeries can do it. I mean, you know more than I do about the bread making process, but why can't we even make good bread in our bakeries?
I think you do find it. I think it depends. Unfortunately, I think most of the bakeries in the United States that you're likely to come across are like chains. And I think with chains, you have a great spectrum of quality of bread depending upon the individual owners, what have you. In Germany, they have chain bakeries as well, but they seem to be able to hold on to the quality a little bit better. To give you an idea about how ingrained, no pun intended, bread is to the German culture, in the mornings between the beginning of school and lunch, there is a period called the Pausenbrote, the period where basically the kids can have a snack. And the snack is inevitably one of those German rolls you were talking about, the Brötchen, and salami, cheese, whatever the case may be. And so it's an ingrained part of the school schedule that there is a time to have a it's basically a snack. 'Cause when they say Pausebrot, it's basically a snack, and it's centered on bread.
And they're not really concerned about refrigeration. They have
No.
lunch meat, we would have to have it like frozen pack, basically little ice cube type
Yeah.
things put in there, but no, they'll put butter on it, lots of butter. They use a lot of butter, you
Yeah.
know. We think we use butter. No, they'll fill it up with butter and cheese and salami and whatever else, and yeah, it's a pretty substantial thing, and you start to your stomach starts to growl when you're in Germany at around 10.
Mhm.
So you start to think, okay, it's time for that snack.
You're on the German clock at that point.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And so you almost you feel like you eat more there, more meals, more big meals. It's not like they have just a bunch of little meals. They're
Yeah.
breakfast, big lunch, big everything. You just walk around a lot more, and
Yeah.
seems to even out.
The fourth thing, almost as a moral obligation, the Germans have mastered the notion of recycling. In the United States, most people's trash cans are broken up into two things, one for trash and two for recycling. Recycling being an all-encompassing blue bin. In Germany, you'll have a blue bin, you'll have a green, you'll have a brown, you'll have all these different colors that are meant to one for green glass, one for brown glass, one for plastic, all this other stuff. It is a system that is shocking to behold, a bit time consuming to understand, and it does have this moral quality to it that everyone is expected to do this. Do you think, beyond the fact that Americans do not go that far with how they differentiate their recycling, do you think it is something that's ingrained in the US? How much do you recycle? Where would you fall into that
Well,
uh, paradigm?
well, I think that we do have sorting of trash. It happens after they collect it.
Mm,
So they're probably the Germans say den Müll sortieren. So you take your trash and you sort it into and I think that you probably get looked down on if you don't have all those different containers out there and then they come and get it. But it's incredibly inefficient if you think about all the labor that is lost in time on the end of the residents, spending all that time. So we just we have pretty strict rules, in the neighborhood where something needs to be in a bag to be in the main garbage can,
mhm.
and that makes sense, and then everything else goes in the other. But then it's sorted on the back end, and I think
Mm,
that would be it. I mean, we think about glass containers and all of that. We kind of lump it in one.
right.
But I don't know a lot of neighborhoods where they just have one and you can just dump it in. So I think the balance is one for bags of trash and one for everything else, and that's pretty good having two. And then there's another one, for grass and nature type stuff. So
Right.
I think three is enough. And if you get more than three out there, you're getting there's a odd word for this, which I won't say in public, but you don't want to get that ill oriented, uh,
Yeah.
with your garbage.
Mm.
That's, I think it's a little too obsessive, and we don't need to get into that.
But do you think that that's one of the reasons why we do not have the commitment to recycling the way the Germans do, is because we're not doing the level of recycling that they are? That if we were required to separate our trash in the way that the Germans are, that maybe we would be more aware, that we would be more in tuned, and that we would be more committed to the recycling bit? Or do you think the American government or the American authorities think, listen, the more we make them do, the less likely they're going to do it?
Yeah, it fits our personality a little bit not to control actions that much. It's
Right.
it's a lot of tedious action, and it'll cause arguments in the neighborhood. You know, and, but I think the fact that the people are perfectly capable of sorting it behind the scenes, and they probably have systems, to do that, so it saves labor in the long run, so I like our system better than the Germans on that one, and I don't say that very often.
What about the idea? This is the fifth thing.
Mhm.
What about the idea of planning? It seems to me that the Germans do not believe in general in spontaneity, that if they don't have it scheduled on their calendar, they are going to have problems accommodating spur of the moment, fly by the seat of your pants kind of existence. We tend to be, it seems like in the United States, we tend to be more capable of the spontaneity. Where do you fall on that line, and to what degree have you noticed that with Germans, this necessity to plan things ahead?
I think they would plan bigger events, trips and going out to dinner and all those things a little bit, but I'm shocked with just the way they use their time. They could be on the way somewhere and decide to come to somebody's home for coffee and cake, you
Right,
know, and that's sort of spur of the moment they do it, and they're comfortable with that, and that would stress us out a little bit, to have,
right.
like, 20-minute little stop, so I think they value socializing a lot more than we do. Um,
But yet they need it to be more structured.
I guess so, I'm not sure on this how it applies to us, but you're saying that we're kind of seat of the pants. Oh, let's all meet at this restaurant in 10 minutes. Got it. Let's go.
I think that we are the benefactors of two predominant cultures. I think one is a Western European culture that is mainly Germanic in nature, and so we do believe in planning. We do believe in kind of organizing our time, but we also are the benefactors of a Latin American influence, where uh, there's not as much requirement for prior planning. You can be more fluid. You can be more, seat of your pants type of planning. Things, just let it go, just let it come, and just let it happen. So I think that there's two sides to us that we experience, and so that's why I don't think it's as big of a deal in the United States as it is in Germany.
Yeah. I mean, it would be odd to have somebody say, I'll be over sometime in the afternoon.
Yeah,
Just kind of, yeah. And then they just sort of show up and you know, you, that would feel strange. So maybe as we get older, we get more meticulous about time. And I think that's common to older people. They say, "What time's that going to happen? When are you going to do that?" You know,
yeah,
when's your rehearsal? When's this? When's this? We want to know that,
yeah.
but yeah, it's about us being aged and elderly here, Miller.
You did bring up something that I absolutely love when I'm in Germany, and that is the visit that is accompanied by coffee and cake.
Mhm.
And this wasn't part of what I was going to talk about today, but just as an aside, I don't know if we ever did that. I don't recall that being something, for example, that my grandparents did. But if we ever did have it, I think it's a loss that we don't have it now.
Yeah, I mean to make it work, I mean they're really big on instant coffee, or they can,
Yes.
making coffee doesn't take that long. Um, but it would assume that they have cake on hand all the time.
And they all do. They all
Yeah.
seem to.
Yeah, yeah, and it's good cake, but it seems to all go really well with coffee. It's like it was
Yes, and it's
meant
yeah,
better.
it's not the kind of cake you'd find at the Albertsons bakery section,
No.
but this is like good cake, and
Yeah,
it goes back to their bakeries.
yeah,
They have good stuff.
yeah. So they would kind of feel naked, Oh, I don't have any cake, and then so if somebody happens to come by, you have nothing to offer them. Which
Mhm.
is a faux pas, I guess. So you need to have coffee, you need tea, you need cake, and you need, alcohol. And if somebody comes into depending on the time of the day, you have something to offer all the time.
All the time.
Yeah,
And it's a fun part of just spontaneous, relaxed conversation. Something else that Germans excel in, conversation. It's just a nice way of doing it.
they're really good at talking, say in restaurants. So they're so comfortable there,
Yeah, yeah.
and every, the conversations go on, and we've said this before that the restaurant timer of 45 to 60 minutes, 90 minutes in a
Mhm,
four-star restaurant in the United States. Typically, it's about 60 minutes or less.
mhm.
They clear the table, another person comes in, check, check. But those conversations, they just get started at that point, and then they may go for the whole night. There's not that eagerness to walk away.
So 4 more things I have. Next is the love of order, the idea of rules, laws, systems. It is certainly a German stereotype, but I think it's one that can be found, to be pretty prevalent within German society. This idea of rules and laws and such. Um, we, on the other hand, we are a country that basically was created in violation of rules, systems, and laws. And perhaps it's not surprising, at least from my experience, that we don't hold with that as readily as the Germans do. Um, you personally, you are a very regimented individual. You have set things that you do. You have set things where you work. and what have you. I think that you have a lot of order in your life. There, the German word in Ordnung, not the German expression, that things have to be in a certain way, in a certain place. Do you see that in yourself or no?
I think I've become more ritualized, routinized as I've
Mhm.
grown older. I think you have to when you're working from home,
Mhm.
have routines. But I forgot what you said that caught my eye in that the idea of following regulations and laws I mean, so not just
Right.
your person, but also I was thinking you were taking it, that other people's behavior. You know, Germans have this set expectation that's pretty straightforward of how people should behave in public and driving. I'm following the rules of the road, uh, all of that. I think they have a lot more respect, for that. And it does. I mean, that kind of thing bugs me. It bugs me more than you. To see somebody driving faster than they should through my neighborhood. That's an affront.
Right.
But or on the freeway, everybody's breaking the law by about 15 miles an hour, and it's weird. And if they have a pickup truck, they they've disabled their turn signals. That's part of it when they and they've been told that they need to tailgate everybody and drive 20 miles faster, and so that seems to be obviously it bothers me a little bit.
Well, it's interesting because you tapped into something that's actually another thing, and that is the German notion of complaining.
Oh,
And complaining, not just to complain, but it's also the idea of complaining represented as unsolicited ideas for improvement that you'll see just complete strangers do to one another. And it's all based on the fact that they feel that the people are not doing what they're supposed to be doing.
make suggestions, friendly, unsolicited suggestions.
Yes. Friendly in quotation marks.
Yeah.
They don't mean anything mean by it. It's
Yeah.
just part of their makeup. They feel empowered
Mhm.
to tell complete strangers you shouldn't be doing that. You should not be walking in the bike lane. That's a big thing in Germany. The bike lane is a sacrosanct area
Yeah.
that only should be inhabited by bicycle riders.
Yeah, they would be more likely to make a public statement to somebody who's
Yeah.
a train or whatever the space is that they sort of correct each other than we would. And but also giving suggestions is their intention is to be helpful.
Mhm.
It was, one of the Latin teachers at one of my schools had a German teacher sit in, and while the teacher was teaching, the German teacher is also a Latin teacher, was observing and
Mhm.
promptly stood up and went to the board and said, "Well, of course, your teacher is not correct in this. Here's the declaration of this verb." And then he sat down, and we would be aghast, but he was being helpful, and that's the German mentality. So it's not personal; it's business. This is the correct way, and yeah, it's important.
It is interesting, though, that it goes beyond just the idea of what could be possibly construed as friendly, constructive criticism to actually every citizen has a responsibility to enforce the rules and regulations as it applies to various other things. I remember being on a bus one time in Germany, and these two teenagers were just jawing at one another, and they weren't being particularly kind to one another. And an older gentleman, he looked to be like in his 70s. He just basically said in German, "Leave it alone. Give it a rest," basically. And what was amazing is that one, he felt empowered to say that, and two, that the teenagers stopped doing what they were doing
Yeah.
because they had been publicly admonished. And you think about how bad that could go wrong in the United States. That there's no way in hell that two teenagers who felt self-possessed enough to argue on a bus
Yeah.
would then turn around and accept the admonishments of some croggy old guy in the back saying, "Leave it alone. You're disrupting the peaceful coexistence that we have on this bus." It is amazing the difference in this regard, the difference between Germany and the US.
Yeah. The fact that they would say anything at all.
Yes.
Yeah. So
But it wasn't always like that because George Carlin told a joke about this, he was being serious, and it also applied to me where if I got in trouble at school, it seemed like the whole street knew about it before I got home, and that it seemed like every mother on their front stoop had the right to smack me if I was doing something wrong or if they heard I had done something wrong. So, depending on the crime that I committed at school, beyond my parents punishing me, I had the very real possibility that I was going to get smacked or punished or admonished by at least five other people.
they still know about you in that neighborhood, probably. I remember that kid.
He never could behave in school. It is remarkable. So it wasn't always like that, that we would be afraid to say something to people in public.
Yeah,
But I think certainly in the last 40, 50, 60 years, that has quickly disappeared.
yeah, I agree.
Okay. So two more things. We're going to go from the holy to the unholy, depending on how you look at it. The Sunday rest idea in Germany.
What's it
The
called?
fact that, say again,
What did you call it?
Sunday rest.
Sunday rest.
Yes. And so the fact of the matter is, there are, to use an American colloquialism, there is like blue laws in Germany where a vast amount of stores are closed on Sunday. Not grocery stores, but just about any other store you can think of. And in apartment complexes, you can even have what are called quiet hours in Germany, where you're not allowed to operate any kind of machinery that would go through the walls and disturb other people. You could not do any kind of repairing. It's a strict adherence to this notion of quiet hours, and it typically falls on a Sunday. We've had a tradition in the United States of blue laws, things that you could not do. It didn't go so far as to inhabit like quiet hours, but we did have a history of that.
And what was outlawed? I mean, now we think of blue laws as you're blue because you can't buy any beer until noon. Is that what it means?
Well, no, the originally blue laws are called such because they were submitted and they were posted on blue paper, and that's where no, seriously, and that's where we get the notion of blue laws. But it generally dealt with things like alcohol or bars or any other thing that was considered not uh, kosher to do on a Sunday, and so it included most businesses would be closed on Sundays. Nowadays, the only ones that anyone know is closed on Sunday is like Chick-fil-A or Home Depot or something like that. Not Home Depot. What's that other one? That kind of craft store. There's a craft store that does it as well, where they're closed on Sundays. But beyond that, we really don't have this idea at all anymore.
Yeah, it seems. Um, I mean, our communities are so mixed now. I mean, it used to have a religious element of a Sabbath, and that, so if you have a whole community that is not working intentionally and not making other people work by providing services, that would make sense.
Mm,
But I think it is noticeable though when you get to Germany. If you're fortunate enough to travel to Germany, but it happens to be a Sunday afternoon, there's nothing open. You know,
right.
okay, where do I go? I can't get food. I can't do anything. The rest, I mean, they'll have pauses in the afternoon during the week also,
Yeah. Yeah.
where the storekeepers are having lunch basically, and so they're closed for a certain time. But the Sunday thing is it is. quite different. They've definitely followed that, um, you know, in most places actually.
Right. Yet we don't. And of course, in the United States, we've always had a greater emphasis on the importance of business and the importance of making money. For good or for bad, we have had this as kind of a driving force in our society. And so it's actually amazing that blue laws stuck around as long as they did when you consider that. But there is no thought that certain businesses should be closed on a Sunday in the United States. And so it's a stark difference between what you come across in Germany. And Germany is not a religiously homogenous place either. And yet somehow these laws have stuck. And and everyone, going back to the unsolicited ideas for improvement in the form of complaining, this is something that's also a fodder for those kind of conversations. If you're not observing the quiet hours, if you're doing something that you shouldn't be doing on a Sunday.
So what do you call that when you sort of badger people? They annoy people for doing what they want to do. You're taking some liberties, and
You are taking it is interesting. We have, talking about historical influences. The United States is very much influenced by a lot of the Puritan philosophies and ideas.
yeah.
Someone once said that Puritanism is defined by someone who is scared to death that somebody else somewhere is having a good time. But I think
That's
I
big.
think though the idea is that Puritanism has kind of influenced our idea of work ethic. The Protestant work ethic is very strong in the United States. But we've kept to that, but we've kind of moved away from some of these other things that are perhaps religiously based.
So there could be a connection with this. The word I was looking for was nagging.
Yes, nagging.
Also being nosy. You're getting people's business. But it does affect, teachers. The impression is, oh, this you can't tell me what to do. You're my teacher, man.
Yeah.
But that being comfortable being redirected by adults is something that students learn in school. Uh,
Yeah.
but maybe they learn it better in other places.
Well, the last thing, um, not to make you uncomfortable, but I thought it'd be fun to make you uncomfortable.
Uh,
Have you ever been
we
to
run out of time on our,
No, no, we got plenty of time. We can go as long as we want to. So, um, have you ever been in the United States? Have you ever been to a sauna?
a sauna. Um, Only when I was like 10 years old. And it was in Michigan. And the idea was you get in the sauna and then you run naked towards Lake Superior and jump in the cold water at night. That was the thing. But it all happened
To
at
be
night.
na
Yeah.
to be naked.
Yeah.
Okay.
But no,
Well,
I've not been to one as an adult.
yeah.
And why would you want to do that?
Well, first of all, I love, love, love saunas.
Okay.
And I used to do it as a form of um uh regulating my health. So like anytime I was starting to feel a little under the weather, I would go to the gym, I would sit in the sauna for like 30 or 40 minutes and just sweat out all the bad stuff. And there are various cultures that have this as a part of their modus operandi. For example, the Navajo have what are called hogans. These are these tents that are designed for different purposes. You can live in a hogan, but they also have what are called sweat lodges or sweat hogans. And the idea for the Navajo is that the more you sweat, the more you put your internal spirit in order and in balance. So, for example, if you're having a rough time and you're not treating people well and you're basically a menace to society, one of the ways that they consider healing a person is to put them through a sweat ritualization. Whether you go through this process, you go into this sweat lodge or sweat hogan, and you sit there and through prayers and chants and what have you, you get out all the bad stuff.
Wow.
So in the United States, we have this tradition of saunas, but the thing that befuddles Germans probably the most is when they go to a sauna and they see people in the sauna
Yeah.
with clothes on
Well,
and
shorts. Yeah,
and yeah,
swimsuiters.
shorts, basically the same sweaty outfit they just got finished working out in.
Right.
They then go into the sauna and wear that.
Right.
But in Germany, it's all done naked.
Yeah, they're more comfortable
Now,
with that than we are.
say again.
They're more comfortable being naked than we are.
So here's the thing. I've heard people talk about the fact that the Germans are just more grown up about the notion of bodies and being and nudity and things of that nature. First of all, I call bullshit on that
What?
because no,
That's
seriously, because I have been in one of the things that I like to do is I like to just observe people. And I like and I just and I'll watch just what people do, how people do things, why people do things. I just love watching people and in a non-creepy sort of way. I just kind of observe
well,
my fellow human beings.
okay.
So every time I've been in a sauna in Germany,
Yeah.
I look around and I'm not looking around to look, I'm looking around to see how other people are reacting to the fact that we're all naked together. And every once in a while, you'll see some weirdo with a towel, but for the most part, everybody is naked. They'll have a towel with them, they'll sit on it or what have you, but they will not have it on. And so what I notice is that every German in there is looking and they're checking people out. They're doing it more subtly than some of the weirdos that we have in this country, but they're all looking. And so I call bullshit on the fact that Germans are just simply they're way too mature to make any big deal about nudity. They're much more accepting. They're much more grown up about the notion of sexuality. And I think that that's not true. But two, for whatever reason, everyone seems to be okay with it. And in Germany, you don't wear clothes, and it's a bit jarring the first time you experience it as an American because you're used to being clothed. But this is probably the clearest delineation between a German cultural trait and an American one.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I've heard about those places. And so the rule on the street is anybody asks you to go to a sauna in or a spa, even they may call it that to trick you.
Mm.
Just fake an injury and you don't go because it's just it's uncomfortable unless you're used to that kind of thing. No, I don't
my
want
host
to
my
either.
host recommended that we go to one simply because he knew that I went to them in the United States. And of course, it's a much different, much more elaborate type of thing. You know, in the United States, you go into a single sauna, you hang out and sweat for a while, and then you leave. In Germany, they have these massive complexes. Usually, they're accompanied by or are joined by a pool, and in pool facilities. But they will have different sauna rooms for different temperatures, and you basically work your way up to the highest degree temperature. You start with the lowest, and then in between each one, you may do a dip or something or what have you, and then you go back into the next highest temperature room. But it's a bigger deal. It's a much more organized kind of deal. Um, but yeah, the nudity is a part of it, and it can be a bit unsettling as an American, not just because adults are naked, but there's also kids there as well. And so that can typically freak out Americans, as it certainly freaked out me the first time I saw it. So it's one of those things where, and even like in Japan, Japan has the onsen culture where it's like a spa. Now it typically is delineated between male and female. So there's a male area, there's a female area,
Japan.
but you are also naked there as well.
What about in Germany? Are they delineated?
No,
What? You didn't bring that up.
everybody
So you kind of buried the lead there.
everybody is together,
Even in the sauna?
even in a sauna,
Men and women.
men and women
Uh,
together, maybe as God intended.
I guess so. So where's your tour going this next summer? Yeah, put that on your
I,
itinerary.
I don't have any sauna visits in plan for my trip.
No, it doesn't.
There's no reason to pick at that scab. I'm not doing that. So
Okay. All right. Well, we will
but
leave that to another time. But yeah, definitely uncomfortable just because I know I wouldn't want to experience that, and the fact if I were bringing students over to Germany, then the parents here would say, they did what? All of this is uncomfortable, but somehow that never came up in 20 odd years of doing exchange. But you brought it up here today.
so in general, after looking at all this stuff, and this is just a small slice of the cultural quirkiness of the Germans,
Yeah,
would you agree that we still have a sizable Germanic quality to our philosophies and our way of life? Or do you think that we have separated too far to still be considered Germanic in our orientation?
I think we're all moving towards the middle. I think the Germans are becoming more Americanized. That's an easy one.
Right.
So the younger, the more American. I think the older generations are dying off, just like we are. We're probably different than the younger people. That would be my guess. But there's definitely a huge influence, and we're probably closer to Germans than about any culture that we could come up with.
Hmm. Well, yet another podcast in the bag. Sorry we had that unscripted week hiatus following the 2 week
Oh,
hiatus, but yeah, we're back. Hiatuses happen. Or whatever, or hiati. I don't know what the plural of hiatus is, but
um,
whatever it is, we've had it over the last couple of years. So
nobody's ever said hiati before, but it's probably phonetically correct.
it's probably not a good idea to say it, but we'll figure out what the plural is and we'll get back to y'all folks. So anyway, thank you for listening. Thank you for hanging out with us. We appreciate it. And with that, I shall say adieu, Herr Dr. Bourgeois.
Wiedersehen, Herr Miller.